Tonight, missile campaigns intensify in the Middle East as Donald Trump warns of a big wave of strikes to come. Iran shuts down a major sea passage, raising more fears about global oil supplies. Good evening, I'm Kyle Dowling. This is ABC News, Northern Territory. Also tonight, the NT renews efforts to keep prisoners from returning to jail. The Prime Minister tables a damning secret report into the Liberals' election defeat. And the Matildas pay tribute to their brave opponents in the Iranian women's team. US President Donald Trump has warned the biggest strike on Tehran is still to come and that he'll send in American troops if necessary. On the third day of the widening conflict, the Iranian regime's retaliation has been taking aim at more countries across the Gulf. It's pounding key oil refineries and shut down the Strait of Hormuz. The human cost of the war is also coming into focus. One human rights group says at least 1,500 people have been killed in Iran by US and Israeli strikes, including 200 civilians. Iran's latest retaliatory strikes have also hit an airbase used by Australians. We start our coverage of the war tonight with Middle East correspondent Matthew Doran.
Iran's capital under fire as the US strikes from the air and the sea. Daylight revealing the extent of destruction at the Gandhi hospital in the city's north. It was evacuated on Sunday after Israeli missiles fell nearby. The explosion also felt by residents in neighbouring apartments.
Suddenly I saw the door and windows and everything being thrown towards me. The chandelier fell and thick smoke covered everywhere. I was shocked.
And the United States says the biggest hits are yet to come. President Donald Trump honouring soldiers of past wars and the 6 American troops who've died in this new one.
In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve. We have a lot of great service members here with us, too, in this beautiful building. Isn't it beautiful? We're improving the building. See that nice drape?
The president distracted in his first live address since the start of a war which could define his presidency.
Somebody said today, they said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this.
Iran and its allies have fired back, hitting a hotel housing US troops in northern Iraq. In Bahrain, dozens of Iranian missiles and drones have been intercepted, but some slipped through. And an airbase outside Dubai, used by Australian forces, was also struck over the weekend.
All the Australians who are there are safe and accounted for.
We don't seek to regionalise the war. It will become regional simply because US bases and facilities are spread across our region.
In Kuwait, 3 US fighter jets were mistakenly shot down from apparent friendly fire. All 6 crew members managed to eject safely.
You want to save. You want to save. You want to save.
As the widening war enters a third day, there's still little clarity about what the US hopes to achieve and the legality of the preemptive strikes alongside Israel.
The imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us.
The US is praising Israel as a capable partner.
Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force.
Force which Israel is unleashing to its north. Renewing airstrikes on the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, which has joined Iran in the conflict. Civilians are fleeing the country's south and Hezbollah's stronghold suburbs in Beirut after overnight strikes killed at least 50 people.
We heard the sound of planes. At first we thought it was the airport because we live near it. Then we heard shelling. Suddenly people started screaming.
The United Nations is urging a return to diplomacy, but in the battered central Israeli city of Beit Shemesh, President Isaac Herzog was defiant.
We want peace, and for this, sometimes you need to fight, and that's exactly what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, how do you respond to criticism from the UN that this is a breach of international law?
The first Israelis killed have been laid to rest. At least 9 have died.
There was no siren. Suddenly the missile landed directly on the synagogue.
President Trump hasn't ruled out sending in American troops, saying he doesn't have the yips with respect to boots on the ground, and predicts the campaign will be over in 4 to 5 weeks.
To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq.
This is not an endless war. This is, in fact, something that will usher in an era of peace that we haven't even dreamed of.
But in its fight for survival, the Iranian regime says it's prepared for a long war.
And Matthew is in Tel Aviv for us tonight. Matthew, Iran is escalating its retaliatory strikes across the region and has hit a US embassy in Saudi Arabia.
Kyle, good evening. This is a suspected drone attack on the US Embassy in the Saudi capital, Riyadh. It happened earlier this morning, local time. Given that time of day, it doesn't appear that there were any injuries or any major damage there, but it is reaffirming those calls from the US State Department to Americans across this region to get out while they can, noting, of course, the travel chaos which has enveloped this region. The diplomatic quarter in Riyadh, where the US Embassy is also home to other countries' diplomatic missions, including Australia. Its embassy just a couple of hundred metres down the road, and it too has been closed due to the deteriorating security situation there. It goes to show that Iran is becoming more emboldened to attack countries that it wouldn't normally go after as it expands this conflict. In the last couple of moments, we have also heard from Israel's Defence Minister, Israel Katz. He has authorised the IDF to start moving into Lebanese territory in the south of the country. Another escalation there on another front. Kyle.
Thanks, Matthew. While a small number of commercial flights have managed to fly out of the war-ravaged region, the federal government is warning there's no immediate solution for stranded Australians. More than 17,000 flights have been delayed globally, and travellers fear there's no end in sight.
As missiles flew across the region, stranded tourists took shelter in hotel basements, bedding down on floors and mattresses as they waited out the night.
People were generally fearful for their lives. I was just absolutely terrified.
Sydney woman Kelly Exner is now safe at a friend's home in Dubai, but has no idea for how long, and only has a few weeks' worth of medication for severe refractory Crohn's disease.
I think everybody just needs to manage expectations about when we get out, right? Like, it's terrifying, it's, scary, it's absolutely horrible to be, away from friends and family in a country that you don't understand.
Back home in the Blue Mountains, Andy and Rachel Foster are $30,000 out of pocket for a trip they were meant to embark on tonight.
Because it was the weekend, we couldn't get in touch with the travel agent, so we just sort of tried to make our own decisions as to what we thought was going to happen.
The Australian government is working on contingencies to get Australians out, but has ruled out military-assisted evacuation for now.
I am advised that a small number of commercial flights to other destinations were able to depart overnight. However, the unfortunate reality is that immediate resolution to this situation is unlikely.
And experts are warning of more retaliatory strikes by Iran on infrastructure across the region.
I see no reason why they would stop doing it, because they already see that they're getting some results from it. A huge airport like Dubai Airport has been closed down, which has a massive effect on international aviation.
More than 17,000 flights have been delayed globally and more than 3,000 cancelled as of this morning. Australians in the Middle East are urged to register with the Department of Foreign Affairs, while airlines are telling customers to closely monitor flight information and visit the government's Smart Traveller website. Christy Sexton-McGrath, ABC News.
The war is threatening global oil and gas supplies, with concerns the supply shock could stoke inflation and send petrol prices soaring. The Treasurer has directed the competition watchdog to monitor petrol prices, and rate hikes are looking more likely.
Smoke billowing from one of the world's biggest refineries after it was hit by Iranian drones. This attack on key Saudi Arabian oil infrastructure marks a dramatic escalation in Iran's strategy to halt the flow of oil to the west. That has Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock worried.
It's too early to say what the economic impact will be. A supply shock of this nature, for example, could add to inflation pressures, and the potential implications for inflation expectations also are something that we're very alert to.
That's code for prepare for possible rate hikes. After the weekend attacks, Iran's retaliation initially targeted military installations across the region, along with 3 tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, everything from ports to pipelines is in its sights.
An Iranian general has said not one drop of oil leaving the region. The US is certainly looking to prevent that scenario from happening.
Saudi Arabia, the world's biggest exporter, ships the bulk of its oil and gas through the Persian Gulf, along with Bahrain, Qatar, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE and Iran. But it has a pipeline to shunt oil and gas through the Red Sea in case of a threat.
The pipeline infrastructure doesn't move anywhere near as much as the on-sea shipping capacity. So yes, it helps and it limits the damage, but it doesn't replace shipping.
Qatar, one of the world's biggest gas exporters, has shut down LNG production after strikes against 2 facilities. A spike in gas prices 4 years ago sent inflation into orbit. That forced the RBA into a punishing series of rate hikes. The Treasurer is warning against price gouging at the petrol pump, but surging gas prices could be a much bigger headache. Ian Verrinder, ABC News.
Northern Territory Police are searching for a 20-year-old man who escaped custody in Alice Springs last night. Murphy Ward was due to appear in Alice Springs Court today on aggravated burglary charges, but last night slipped his handcuffs and jumped the fence of the Alice Springs Watch House. Mr. Ward is the 3rd prisoner to escape custody in the past month, with a 4th mistakenly released from prison 2 weeks ago. The 20-year-old was being held by a private security firm at G4S at the time of his escape, with Corrections Commissioner Matthew Varley today backing the private firm despite the bungled transfer.
These people are managing hundreds of people through the court cells in both Darwin and Alice Springs every week, and I'm very satisfied that this is a very professional service.
The Northern Territory Government will trial a $2.3 million employment program for people exiting Northern Territory jails, assisted by a South Australian non-for-profit organisation. The Territory has Australia's highest rate of reoffending, with today's announcement part of the wider effort within NT Corrections to address a massive increase in the prison population. Oliver Chaseling reports.
An interstate non-for-profit chasing goals which have eluded successive Northern Territory governments.
Breaking the cycle of reoffending, having those employees out there available for people to work and to help those prisoners transition out of prison into community life.
Today, the government announcing WorkSkill Australia will, from this month in Darwin and July in Alice Springs, provide job training and life skills on both sides of the NT's prison walls.
WorkSkill provides that next linkage back into community with that sustained case management, keeping people on track and providing a safety net of supports back into a series of services across the whole Northern Territory.
The $2.3 million contract is for a 2-year trial, aiming to support up to 800 ex-prisoners in the months before and after their release, the provider taking some credit for Australia's lowest rate of reoffending in South Australia.
Developing that relationship while in prison with prisoners and then having that trusted relationship while they exit is very meaningful and material for people to stay in this voluntary program.
For every 10 people released from a Northern Territory prison in 2021, 6 were back inside within 2 years. That's Australia's highest rate of reoffending, increasing 20% since 2001. WorkSkill says it will help ex-prisoners deal with potential employers and won't be deterred if they don't stay in the job.
So they might fall out of work, we go again and we keep going till they stick with it.
Renewed effort towards a functional justice system. Oliver Chaseling, ABC News.
A Public Accounts Committee has today examined the implementation of the controversial patient record system, Acacia. The joint venture between the NT Department of Health and the Department of Corporate and Digital Development was switched off in Royal Darwin Hospital's emergency department in 2024 due to serious patient concerns. It's since been re-implemented, but employees still hold concerns about the rollout.
A health system schmozzle under the microscope.
Today, a hearing into the controversial patient record system Acacia considered serious concerns.
A statement that was made on the record was there have not been direct patient safety issues. This is in reference to association with Acacia. Our members, our doctors, would reject that statement wholeheartedly.
Mr Zorbas says next of kin records were incorrect. Triage times in the ED were significantly slowed, and even deceased patients were booked in for operations. The Health Department told the hearing last month some statements made about patient risks were not substantiated with evidence. While it has not been perfect, no project with this level of complexity is ever executed perfectly, it has been a resounding success. Acacia is making a tremendous and transformative difference in the care that is delivered to our patients in our territory hospitals every day. Then there's the cost of the project, initially budgeted at $186 million, now blown out to $320 million and counting. Other criticism raised by those working on the program's implementation, pointing to a toxic workplace and a tendency to ignore the concerns of multiple contractors.
They were disregarded. It would happen all the time. Often it meant that the program bled expertise because anyone with half a brain would leave and say, I'm not putting up with this, and they could get a job elsewhere.
One former IT contractor says his concerns about project implementation were ignored.
They should not be providing leadership to the agencies in how they use technology or what they use technology for. Their job should be providing technology at the lowest possible cost and the highest possible quality.
The department says an investigation is underway about some complaints. A final report will be prepared by the committee. Tilda Colling, ABC News.
AirAsia has announced the end of its operations in Darwin, meaning Territorians will no longer be able to fly directly to Malaysia. The budget airline has been operating in the NT for less than a year, flying to Kuala Lumpur and Bali. It says demand for flights is not high enough to be commercially sustainable, but the company remains open to reinstating the routes if that changes. It's the second time the airline has left the NT after ceasing flights to Bali in 2018. Flights will be suspended from the 28th of April, and customers who hold tickets for travel after this date will be refunded. After days of heavy rain, conditions are easing in Alice Springs, with the Todd River no longer at risk of bursting its banks. As water levels continue to drop, authorities have cancelled the flood warning for the river with no further updates planned. Authorities are still urging caution around creeks and crossings, and warn roads can still be dangerous. Deputy Incident Controller James Gray Spence says even shallow water can be dangerous.
As soon as you lose your footing on one of those causeways, you are risking your life. And that's why we say if it's flooded, forget it.
The Prime Minister has taunted his political opponents, tabling the Liberal Party's secret election review in Parliament. The report makes for uncomfortable reading for the current Liberal leadership team, blaming their policies in part for the party's dismal result. Here's National Affairs correspondent Jane Norman.
Brandishing a review his opponents wanted to bury.
I table it for them so that they can read the report.
The Prime Minister put the Liberal Party's secret election review on the public record.
About the diabolical campaign that they ran.
In a copy obtained by the ABC, Peter Dutton's described as a grim and introverted leader who made himself captain, coach and ball boy of an incoherent campaign. He presided over the Liberals' worst ever election defeat. Every demographic except over 55s was lost in a campaign that alienated women and offended migrants. Another point of failure, policies. The decision to oppose Labor's income tax cuts immediately impacted on the coalition's economic credentials. The deeply unpopular working from home plan, the turning point, which cost one regional candidate her seat. Policies the new Liberal leadership team were responsible for.
Those who now have control of the party were the architects of their electoral defeat.
Oh, well, I would have thought a Minister of the Crown had better things to do than read a Liberal Party election review, but clearly not.
Can I thank you once again?
The review discussed at today's joint party room meeting, MPs committing to learn from their defeat.
We should go much further and make sure that we are an election-winning machine.
The decision by the party's executive not to publish this report now looks like an own goal. It was always going to leak, and the party's accepted most of its recommendations. For his part, Peter Dutton thinks it's a distorted version of history, but the end of an unedifying chapter. Jane Norman, ABC News, Canberra.
A WA teenager has pleaded guilty to threatening to kill the New South Wales Premier and Prime Minister. Will James King made the threats in a direct message to Chris Minns' Instagram account in January. King said he would assassinate the Premier and Prime Minister and also message, "You're a Jew, not a real Semite." The magistrate said there was no explanation for the comments and sought a psychological report before sentencing. The 19-year-old's lawyer said her client was extremely remorseful and didn't realise the gravity of his messages.
My client is a young man, and like anybody else, he made an honest mistake.
To finance now, and oil and gas stocks continue to rise on the local share market, but that was the only bright spot in an otherwise grim day for investors. Here's Alan Kohler.
The American market was held steady by all company shares going up and an unrelated bounce in tech stocks, but shares in Japan and Europe were hit fairly hard. And that was the tone in Australia today, where mining stocks and others with a global focus were sold. Energy companies and banks were bought. Oil, gas, gold and silver continued to rally for obvious reasons, especially gas, after the world's biggest LNG export facility in Qatar was shut down after it was hit by an Iranian drone. At one stage, European gas futures were up 54% before settling 39% higher. And gold is having another run at its record high. And the Aussie dollar is standing still, holding its breath, hoping nobody notices it. The ABS released housing approvals data for January today. They fell 7.2%, with units down 25%. Now, the Reserve Bank's head economist, Sarah Hunter, gave a very interesting speech in Norway last night, comparing what the RBA has done with interest rates against the average of other advanced countries. Our cash rate peaked at 4.35%, as we know. The others, on average, peaked at 5.7%. They're now the same at 3.85%. That's meant higher inflation here than it would have been, what Sarah Hunter calls the counterfactual, if the RBA cash rate had been the same as the average of the others. More importantly for the RBA, it's also meant less unemployment, which was the plan. Our unemployment rate is 4.1%. The counterfactual is 5.2%. And the grey shaded area shows the range of other advanced countries, which is enormous. And Australia's jobless rate is the lowest. And that's finance.
Coming up on 7:30 with Sarah Ferguson, as different states look to tighten gun laws, what will keep Australians safe?
In Australia, the mere act of owning a firearm is a political act.
We said we would respond and respond we have.
There doesn't seem to be any relationship between the number of legally owned guns and firearm violence in Australia.
I guess we can make the same argument when we ban cars. We'll have less car accidents. It's not a practical outcome.
Hawthorn co-captain Jai Newcombe is free to play in the AFL's opening round after his one-match ban was downgraded to a fine at the AFL tribunal. Newcombe had been banned for a dangerous tackle, but will now play against GWS in Sydney on Saturday.
Jai Newcombe was facing the ban for this tackle on the Western Bulldogs' Ed Richards in a practice match last Friday. Now free to play, he'll join a new-look Hawthorn midfield with more presence expected from the likes of forward Nick Watson and utility Josh Weddle.
I'm a massive advocate for Weds. I'm probably the wrong guy to ask, but yeah, I love watching him go about it.
It begins on Thursday night at the SCG when Sydney take on Carlton, which coach Michael Voss said could feature 11 new names. They'll include debuts from father-son Harry Dean and former number 3 draftee Jagger Smith, 1 year after he tore his ACL.
Most people have been seeing him over the last couple of weeks and the impact that he can have on games.
He's been likened to Dacos, and I think it's a great comparison.
Geelong will play the Gold Coast Suns on Friday night, when midfielder Tanner Bruin will play his first AFL game for the Cats in 17 months. The 23-year-old missed all of last season while facing rape charges, which were dropped after a key witness admitted to lying.
One of the most egregious injustices I can think of in the game. So to put that behind him, I think is positive for everyone.
Premiers, the Brisbane Lions, play the Western Bulldogs on Saturday and have every intention of making it 3 flags in a row.
We just want to look on a 2026 now. It's a new year and a new challenge.
Recent history suggests they're up for it. David Mark, ABC News.
Matilda's midfielder Amy Sayer has acknowledged the bravery of the Iranian women's team ahead of Thursday's Asian Cup group game on the Gold Coast. Sayer says the Matildas' hearts go out to the Iranian women who are playing while their country is under attack.
Back in training on the Gold Coast, the Matildas are aiming to maintain their unbeaten start to the Asian Cup and improve on their underwhelming 1-0 win over the Philippines. But they're also mindful of the pressure that their next opponent, Iran, is under on and off the pitch.
Our heart goes out to them and their families. It's a difficult situation. And, you know, it's really brave of them to be able to be here and to perform. The best we can do to contribute is to just give them the best game of football that we're able to, show them the respect on the field.
The Iran players also had the respect of the fans last night before they played their first game of the tournament.
It's going to be very hard for them to just be in the match. We'll support them to do their best, and we are more than happy to have them here.
I would say it's not easy to be a female Iranian athlete. I don't think the West will ever understand the dynamics that they have to deal with.
There was no singing from the Iran team members during the national anthem. They had some promising moments in a determined display, but were outclassed 3-0 by the 2022 finalist, South Korea.
And it's headed home!
North Korea also started its campaign on a winning note.
And the follow-up volley!
Defeating Uzbekistan 3-0 in Parramatta. Duncan Huntsdale, ABC News.
NRL player Zach Lomax has settled his legal fight with Parramatta and has agreed not to return to the NRL without the Eels' consent before the 2028 season. The New South Wales Supreme Court has been told the terms of his release stay the same, except Lomax will now be able to return without their consent in 2028 instead of the initially agreed 2029. He had been trying to sign with the Melbourne Storm, who will now have to pay the Eels $250,000 in legal costs. Lomax had previously been granted a release to join Rebel Rugby competition R360, but that league's delay until 2028 has left him in limbo. And now to the weather, and tonight's weather pick of water in the Todd River has been sent in by Heather Pedrotti, and you can send us your weather photos to weatherpicsnt@abc.net.au. There were scattered showers across the NT and afternoon storms developed in the Territory today. It was 31 in Darwin, 29 in Warramayunga. Zooming out, 34 in Katherine, 29 in Nhulunbuy and Jabiru 31. Alice Springs reached 23, Yalara 33 and Tennant Creek 30 degrees. On the satellite, monsoon clouds covered much of the north of the country and clouds stretched across central Australia. There's a monsoon trough over the north of the country with tropical lows developing within it and southeasterly winds are being directed over central Australia. Interstate tomorrow, 25 for Hobart, cloudy in Melbourne. In Canberra, showers, a shower or two for Sydney. For Brisbane, a top of 30, 27 in Adelaide and clear skies for Perth. Around the Territory tomorrow, Alice Springs 26 with a shower or two, partly cloudy for Yalara, Tennant Creek 33. Heading north, Katherine, a possible storm, 29 in Borroloola, a chance of an afternoon storm in Gallawinku. And looking west, showers for Wadair and 31 degrees in Darwin tomorrow with showers easing. There's a flood watch in the north and southeast of the NT. River level rises and flooding are occurring in those areas. For the north, showers and storms could become more frequent about the monsoon trough with the possibility of isolated heavy falls in that floodwatch area. There's a morning high tide at 6:52 and a low tide at 1:12 in the afternoon. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:48 and set a bit after 7 o'clock. And looking ahead, monsoonal showers expected to continue for Darwin. We could see some storms ahead as well. And a bit of wet weather still hanging around for Alice Springs, so we could see showers becoming less likely in the days ahead. And stay with us now. Sarah Ferguson is up next with 7:30. Good night.